welcome back to more YouTube channel. It's Chris back with my rant stroke thought of the day, and I've pulled myself off the sick bed. I'm round about 80% from the plague that is man flu that hit me like a ton of bricks during the post-match analysis where I was coughing like Bob Fleming non-stop. Thank you for all the nice messages, by the way, in the live chat, and those who stuck with me while I was trying my best to keep it together. But I had to succumb eventually. I couldn't even do the aftermath. I had to do that as a verbal written post, and thank you for all the love you guys showed that as well. But I'm kind of at 80% back to full fitness now, and I thought I'd jump on and do a video because it's a very poignant time to do a video. Today, as I'm recording this, the 7th of October, is exactly 4 years since the Newcastle United takeover happened. Our saving day, our saving grace, the saviours, Amanda Staveley and Murdoch Gudusi, came in, saved the day along with the Rubens and the PIF. And I just thought I'd jump on and do a quick video as to how the 4 years have gone and where we find ourselves now compared to then. So I'm going to get stuck right into this. If this is the kind of thing you like, smash like and subscribe. Keep it ever more. Help get us to the next milestone of 12,000 subscribers. Leave a comment as well. We always appreciate a little bit of interaction. We'll do our best to come back there. Mark has currently succumbed to man flu after mocking me for struggling as well. So there's karma for you. But send your wishes to Mark as well, because man flu is serious. There's no playing. It's a serious game. So let's get stuck into this then. So 4 years since that fateful day of the takeover. I remember going to the first game after the takeover where Steve Bruce, just sacked by Blackpool, by the way, was still in the dugout. And the atmosphere was electric. It was incredible. Callum Wilson scored the first goal, and I thought the roof was going to come off. I'd never heard St James's Park like that in my entire life. It was absolutely magnificent. And then Spurs just turned it on, beat us, and the negativity and toxicity was there. As soon as Bruce was replaced with Eddie Howe, you started to feel the winds of change were coming. And Eddie Howe came in and he actually ran around with a whistle for once rather than just shouting at journalists and asking how the bacon was. And that was a massive seismic change. We had an unbelievable transfer window. Kieran Trippier, the Iron Man sign that changed it all. Bruno Guimaraes coming in. Dan Burn coming in for 12 million. What a signing he's been. Chris Wood coming as well, who didn't quite hit the heights with us, but did a job for us at the time. The levels of elevated performances from what we thought were rank average players in the shape of Sean Longstaff, Miguel Almiron, Jamal Lascelles. Eddie Howe seemed to get an extra 20, 30, 40% out of these players, and we know what happened. He kept us up, and the next season was incredible. We finished in the top 4 and we got the Champions League. Maybe too early, but wow, what a ride that was. Smashing PSG 4-1, just narrowly getting put out of the group of death as well. And the season after, we had a little bit of a wobble. Injuries, squad looking a bit light. And we managed to finish 7th and still not qualify for Europe, thanks to Man City taking the day off in the FA Cup final. And then Eddie Howe got us back into the Champions League the season after, finishing 5th just by the skin of our teeth. And it's been a very tumultuous 4 years in the takeover, I would say. But by and large, it's been really, really positive. If you think about where we were when the takeover happened, Steve Bruce is the manager, relegation fodder players who, by the way, a lot of them are still here, but improved their games massively under this manager. We've seen some of them disappear, and maybe a little bit longer than they should have done. I'll get into that in a second in terms of the kind of things I think need to be worked on still, despite the rip-roaring success of the Nufc takeover. But by and large itself, from where Newcastle were to where they are now, is night and day. We are light years away from where we were. Relegation fodder, everybody mocking us, just showing up to get beat, looking to finish 17th every season. Under Mike Ashley, no money being spent, ground falling to pieces. All of that has changed, and these new owners have come in, they've breathed fresh air into the lungs of Newcastle United with a young, dynamic manager who's willing to make mistakes and adapt and learn from those mistakes as well. Some of his mistakes he still needs to work on, but I'll get into that in a second. They gave the training ground a refurb. Looks like there's going to be a new training ground hopefully being built. The stadium is still very much up in the air at the minute. I'll get into that in a second in terms of what needs work. But by and large, they've poured a lot of money into the football club. They've got us back to the big time in our eyes in terms of qualifying for Champions Leagues. We won the Carabao Cup. How could I even forget that? My God, first trophy in 70 years. Rip-roaring success if you look at it in that regard, in terms of success of silverware. This ownership, this manager, they've definitely delivered in terms of that. So that's all the good stuff that's come from Newcastle. The fan unity, the bringing people together, all that kind of stuff has all been absolutely brilliant. But as we've improved and as we've swam in different waters, the expectation level has gone up a little bit, within the fan base, within the footballing world. And, now for us, we are looking to finish within that top 7 every single season, and anything outside of that is deemed to be a bit of a failure. So that's where the pressure comes on the manager and the players themselves. Obviously, we identified some absolute superstars and signed them for a snip, really, in the shape of Sandro Tonali, Alexander Isak in particular, for 65 million quid from Sociedad, went on to become one of the best strikers in the world. We saw the milk starting to turn sour this summer in terms of how targeted Newcastle could be, in terms of all the success on the pitch and all the things that we've done well. We're still not up there in terms of an elite financial football club. The back of house has not quite been there. The commercial deals have not quite been as successful as the on the pitch deals. We've been through various different occupants and directorship roles. I mean, the sporting director's been a bit of a farce, with Dan Ashworth, and then obviously I think I forgot his name there. Fucking matey boy, what was he called? I totally forgot his name there for a second there. I've gone blank. It must be all the medication I've taken on the flu. The other guy. He come in, and he wasn't particularly great either. He lasted less than a year, pissed off Alexander Isak, and off he fucked. And then Alexander Isak's gone as well. And what worries me a little bit with the state of the football club right now is the finances is what's holding us back. We know FFP and PSR are bullshit, but we've lost brilliant young players, Elliot Anderson, Yankuba Minter, for example. 2 players that one was in the academy, cost nothing. The other one cost buttons, from a team in Denmark. Exactly the kind of model that you want to be covering and copying. The Brighton model, buying players for nothing, turning them into superstars and selling them for huge profits. And Yankuba Minter was that player, but at a time when we needed that position to be filled, and we've now had to spend 55 million quid on a kid to fill that position who's jury's still out a little bit on him as well. So these things sent shockwaves through the club really this summer, and it was a little bit of a worry as to could somebody else come in for the big players, the Tonalis, the Brunos, the Botmans, the Gordons, and we're just going to have to wait and see what happens with that. But by and large, 4 years of Newcastle United's takeover, you've got to say, has been a success. From where we are now to where we were, as I say, is miles away. And you can't sit there and say we're not further forward as a football club. Are we closer to Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal? Maybe not, but we're a shite side closer than we were before this takeover came through. So in my opinion, I think the takeover generally has been a rip-roaring success. Eddie Howe probably needs to be a bit more ruthless with players in terms of sell them at their optimum level. The likes of Almiron and Wilson could have sold for maybe 10, 15 million more. Longstaff, maybe another 10, 15 million more. Could have kept a hold of Elliot Anderson potentially and Yankuba Minter if we did those deals prior. But Howe has this affinity and affection to players that he trusts, and a lot of the players that he's used over the 3-4 years he's been here, they were in their 30s when he signed them, and they're still here in their mid-30s, pushing their late 30s, and that's a concern. That's a real concern as to what we're doing there. We seem to be transitioning into a future of a back four with, Tino Livramento, Lewis Hall, Malik Chow and Botman. And sadly, with injuries to the fullbacks, we're kind of still sitting there looking at Byrne and Trippier as fullbacks this season, but that's to do with injuries. And I really hope when all the players are fit, we start to see that transition again coming back into the team. But I'm going to reserve judgment on that one, really. But I think by and large, like I say, on the pitch, very successful. Off the pitch, a little bit up and down. I think Amanda Staveley came in with dreams and promises and sparkle dust. And I don't think she quite understood the limitations and restrictions and boundaries that were in football. She sharp learned them very quickly, and that's why we ended up losing players through the FFP and PSR route. I think Darren Eales came in, and I wish Darren Eales well health-wise. I know he's been a poorly man, but he came in as a bit more ruthless, a bit more corporate, and you can see the changes in the club, with the corporate tinge, the ticket prices going up, the lack of communication with the fans, the corporate hospitality, things that they want to do more than maybe engage with fans, the membership thing, which is a little bit of bullshit, really. No one seems to get a ticket. So all these things are very much, open to suggestion and kind of open to objection, I think, by the fan base. So that's not gone as well as on the pitch. Eddie Howe has saved the PIF, the Rubens, a lot of grace and a lot of face by overperforming in the 4 years that he's been here as a manager, or 3 and a bit years he's been here as a manager. And for that, they owe Eddie Howe a multitude of gratitude. They really, really do. So that's where I think we're sitting the takeover right now. It's too early to judge this season. If we have another good season and we finish the Champions League, maybe win a cup, then you got to say we are very much one of those teams now that's in and around the Champions League positions and is in and around winning silverware every year, and that has got to be progress for Newcastle United. So yeah, 4 years on, I think things are going well. Where's the new stadium though? Where's the new training ground? These are questions that still need to be answered, still haven't been answered. And again, I think it's the practicalities and the finances over that, rather than the kind of enthusiasm and drive to do it. I think it's more the practicalities. Can they do it, not do they want to do it? So that's a real challenge, I think, moving forward, and hopefully we'll see some kind of movement on that this season. But just closing as well for us as Evermore, I just want to say the last 4 years has been incredible for us. For two dads just talking about football in front of a computer and with a grainy background, with 40 people watching or 60 subscribers, to be sitting here 4 and a bit years, 5 years down the line with nearly 12,000 subscribers, over 3 million views, 3.5 million views for us. Obviously I've started to do a little bit of something else as well. I've been on Sky TV a couple of times, and that's really good. And it's all brilliant for us, and we've had a great 4 and a bit years as Evermore. And I just wanted to thank each and every single one of you who have watched us, who have liked the videos, who have subscribed, who's become a member, who's shown us love and support over those 4.5 years. We really appreciate it more than you'll ever know, and we hope that you stick with us for whatever comes next on our journey as Evermore. Hopefully another prosperous 4 and a bit years for us as the Evermore and UFC YouTube channel. But thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe, recommend this to family and friends. I'm going to go before I start coughing again. I managed to get through this. Okay, hopefully next time we speak I'll be much better, 100% back fit, ready to go, just like Lewis Hall, I hope. So don't see any more Dan Burn left back. Ooh, we'll get into that after the international break. Have a belter, everyone. I'll see you later. Cheers.
Heroes celebrate. They have done it.